Well, brother, I'm due to donate blood, and I
Ooh,
know that because they won't stop calling me.
wow. Do you do the
And
plasma also?
no, I do whole blood because there's a couple times I did plasma because they were like, we really need plasma right now. So I did that. I did plasma, but most of the time I do whole blood, um, mainly for the testosterone thing. So
Mm,
reduces the viscosity. So as you take exogenous testosterone, viscosity of your blood increases, gets thicker, and then you also have the increase in iron. So
hmm
that's why I
hmm
donate. That's why I donate whole blood, get that stuff out of there. But
Cool, cool.
I was thinking about this, and so I notice improvements in my blood pressure from donating blood regularly. And I saw an interesting thing on Twitter about there was a hypothesis on why women tend to live longer and be just a little bit healthier than men do. And part of the hypothesis was that women have a menstrual cycle every month. So they lose some amount of
Wow.
blood. So
Huh.
I thought, that's interesting to think about because I have, as I coach, people with diabetes, pre-diabetes, I've thought about this and it's like, hey man, like probably getting rid of some of that glycated blood, every so often would probably be of benefit.
Hmm.
Because as you get rid of it, your body's going to have to make more, and that new stuff isn't going to be glycated. So I don't want to say it's going to have a tremendous impact on your overall HbA1c, but there's some period of time where you're actually reducing that, um, maybe enough to make an impact. So I think it would be beneficial there. So I was like, I wonder if there's any, benefit to mortality on donating blood because we know that donating blood saves lives for people who require blood
Right.
transfusions and stuff.
Right, right,
But what
right,
about the
right.
person donating blood? So this will be a nice quick little podcast here. Let me see, go to the first one
Dude,
here. So blood,
does that help your blood pressure also? Yours?
it helps mine, yeah. And I haven't found a whole bunch of information, or at least, studies showing that it provides some meaningful impact. But I think that it does provide a meaningful impact for my blood pressure. I mean, I would say at maybe 5 millimeters of mercury
Hmm
on the systolic. So it just seems to be that the closer I get to when I should donate, I can start to see my blood pressure kind of creep up. Then when I donate, my blood pressure dips back down. And so, having this undulating effect throughout the year keeps it from being, a little bit higher than it otherwise would all year long.
Hmm.
So thinking about that as an area under the curve, like I'm reducing that area under the curve over the course of a year.
Hmm. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I've
So,
been yeah, I've just noticed lately that I guess for about the past 3 or 4 days, my BP has been a little bit higher than normal.
hmm,
Nothing's really changed. I haven't really changed my routines or anything. Got a little more stress going on in the family, but you know that. And so, man, maybe if I just I'm gonna plug into a spigot somewhere and
go donate some blood.
drop off about a quart.
Yeah.
I don't mean to make light of it.
So one
I
of our,
think that there's something to this. Let's dive into
I
the
think so.
study.
Yeah. So looking at some of the evidence that I could find, real quick on this. So blood donations and blood donor mortality after adjustment for healthy donor effect. So what they found is that, so looked at over 1 million donors. They had about 15,000 and a half deaths and over 9.5 million follow-up years, person follow-up years. After adjusting for demographic characteristics only, They showed an 18.6 reduction in mortality per additional annual donation. So that's so if you only donated once, then every donation after that showed 18.6%. However, after they adjusted for other internal healthy donor effects, we'll talk about this in a little bit, each additional annual donation was associated with a 7.5 decreased mortality risk. 7.5%. And so that's not so if you did 3 times a year, it's not going to be 7.5 plus 7.5 plus 7.5. It would be
No.
7.5
Yeah.
and then
Right.
and then that number is reduced and then 7.5 from there. So the more you donate, you kind of have this what's the word, diminishing returns effect
Right.
on it. So it's
Right.
7.5 relative to the other donations. But
Hmm.
I mean, each donation, after adjusting for these healthy donor effects, was a 7.5% decrease in mortality risk. That's not
Hmm.
insignificant.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's not like 20%, but it's not 1% either. So yeah,
yeah.
that's
So if you
significant.
were if you were to give like 3 or 4 times a year, so I try to do 3 or 4 times a year, and that would probably equate to something like maybe a 12 to 15% if you add all those up, which is
Yeah.
not bad. I mean, that's not bad at all. You just go
No, not
and
at all.
spend half an hour giving blood. Not bad. So another one here, improving health profile of blood donors as consequence of transfusion safety efforts. And so this study found that blood donors had an overall mortality 30% lower
Wow.
and a cancer incidence 4% lower than the background population. Now, this 30% lower doesn't include that adjustment for healthy donor bias, and so we can go on to talk about that here. So, but a lower cancer incidence is interesting.
Yeah, I don't really
More,
know. I'm just trying to figure out the connectivity there.
yeah,
That's
mortality and
crazy.
cancer incidence were lowest for outcomes that are recognized as being related to lifestyle factors, such as smoking, or to the selection criteria for blood donation. So let's go to the next one here. Now, this one actually found that there was a standardized incidence ratio, and it was a little bit higher in donors for cancer. This is a 20-year study. But what they say is that the elevated cancer incidence amongst blood donors may reflect higher diagnosis rates due to health-seeking behavior and cancer screening in donors. So this healthy donor effect, when we hear online about things like uh, serum cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, and cardiovascular incidents and stuff, a lot of people will try to dismiss, especially with like the red meat and type 2 diabetes and stuff.
Hmm.
Is a lot of people dismiss the studies saying, oh well, people who tend to eat less red meat and more fruits and vegetables and more fish tend to have overall healthier behaviors and lifestyles. And so some part of what we're seeing is a healthy user bias. Now, people are using the healthy user bias in the wrong way when they say that. So
Yeah,
the
it's
healthy user
backwards.
bias, yeah, healthy user bias isn't describing the what we call multivariate collinearity, which
Wow.
are, yeah. So you'll have recognized, we look at things. So once somebody collects a bunch of data, then they'll do a multivariate analysis where we have these multiple variables which may affect the outcome that we're looking at, such as smoking, blood pressure, BMI, exercise, all of those things. So those are called multivariate collinearity. It is not the healthy user bias. What the healthy user bias is uh, the rate at which people who are generally healthy tend to engage in participating in scientific studies. So I've shown this before where There's been a couple of like the lean mass hyperresponder study where
Hmm.
they're only looking at lean individuals who have a
Hmm.
BMI less than 25 or something like that, and they don't smoke, right? And so that
Yeah.
is actually a good example of a healthy user bias because
Yeah.
they're biasing the sample due to healthy users, right? They're not including
Right.
all of the unhealthy people. And so the same thing happens when we look at blood donations and we're looking at this data on mortality. So, in order to be able to donate blood, you have to meet certain criteria. Those criteria would actually leave us with a biased sample of, quote unquote healthy individuals.
Right.
And so I've actually been turned away twice for donating blood. So I've gone and tried to give it. So once my temperature was high, and then another time my heart rate was high. So I've actually been turned away.
Hmm.
So you have to meet certain criteria, right? And so that's what that first study said. Well, let's take that bias into account and see what we're left with, which gave us that 7.5%. And so in this study here, where they're seeing this increase in standard incidence ratios being higher for cancer amongst donors is probably due to that healthy donor effect. So people who qualify to donate blood, who meet all these criteria, are going to be seeing their doctor more often. They're going to be getting cancer screenings. They're going to be, going in, and if something happens, they're getting things checked early rather than late. And so that's probably why you're seeing why this the
The
authors
cancer thing.
conclude, yeah, the
Yeah.
cancer thing here. But they do say donors had significantly lower mortality, so 30% here. And again, this one's not adjusted for that healthy donor effect. But we are seeing overall mortality is lower in people who donate blood. So, even if it's not the aspect that donating blood is the thing that may lower the mortality, but it may be due to just being able to meet the criteria, that may be something worthwhile in people's lives, So
Hmm.
you may go and try to donate blood and see what the requirements are, and if you don't meet them, you can work on those things. And that may be the thing that gets you to having that lower mortality.
Right.
I,
Right.
I do also think that donating the blood, getting some of that blood out, is leading to some part of that, especially dealing with I can't think of the word, but the iron overload and some of these other things.
Hmm. Wow.
Looking at this one, donation of blood is associated with reduced risk of myocardial infarction. That means heart attack. The Cuopio ischemic heart disease risk factor study. So this is a small cohort, about 2,800, 602,
Men.
2,862 men aged 42 to 60 years. Now, these are critical years for men
Yes.
regarding heart attacks,
Yes. Yes.
followed for an average of almost 9 years. One man out of 153 men who had donated blood in 24 months preceding the baseline examination experienced an acute myocardial infarction during 1984 to 1995, whereas 316 men of 2,529 non-donors had an acute myocardial infarction. And this left them with blood donors in this cohort, had an 88% reduced risk of myocardial infarction compared with non-blood donors. And these findings suggest that frequent blood loss through voluntary blood donations may be associated with a reduced risk of acute myocardial infarction in middle-aged men. Now, I would be curious to know if there's, and I couldn't find anything before we got on here today, but something for secondary prevention. So if you've already had a heart attack, if there's any effect from donating blood on secondary prevention, so preventing a second heart attack. My guess would be yes. If it prevents a primary one, my thoughts would be it should have some amount of prevention on a secondary one. It wouldn't be as much because once you have one, now you're predisposed to have another one.
Well, I don't know how big your cohort could be on that either, because
Yeah.
classically, if you've had a heart attack, most guys, and I'm not going to give a percentage because I don't really know, but I would just say most guys or gals, their doctors put them on a slight blood thinner, even if it's just
Hmm.
like low dose aspirin.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I think that's one of the factors that are like disqualifying for a
It
blood
may
donor,
be.
is
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
if you're on any kind of thinner.
Yeah. That's true. It may be.
I think that would be the bigger. I think that would be the most important thing as far as medications.
Well, that
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 might
might be why I
disqualify.
couldn't find anything. I'm gonna have
Yeah,
to
I don't
look
think.
into. Yeah, so I'm gonna give blood pretty soon. Like I say, I'm up for it. Need to get it done. So I'm gonna ask about that.
I'm sorry, I almost choked on my coffee. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm up. I'm up for that. I'm up for that.
Well, I mean, it's just
I
time,
gotta psych myself up.
between the
Okay.
last time I gave and when I'm eligible to give again. So it's about every 8 weeks, about every 2 months, you're eligible. And then so why do we give blood? Well, the reason is because blood's made up of many complex parts and serve many specific functions. And we do have the ability to make some amount of synthetic blood. However, it doesn't tend to do very well with everyone. And one of the things that we have a hard time making are platelets.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Yes.
yeah. So that's that. So, donating blood not only helps with saving other people's lives, may help to save your life and prevent you from having a heart attack and quite possibly having lower incidence of cancer, depending on which study we're looking at, which population. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a life-saving gift for sure. For sure.
yeah.
Mm-mm-mm.
All right, man. Well, that's it. That's the podcast.
That's awesome, dude. That's awesome. So, if I had anything to say at the end of this conversation, is that regardless of whether you're chasing improvement in your um, risk of myocardial infarction or heart attack, I encourage people, if you qualify, go out and give blood.
Yeah.
Just being in the medical field for a while, and my wife as well, it's like you'd be amazed at how much blood hospitals go through. It's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. I saw something as I was looking, trying to find the information on why blood is needed. There's something like when you donate, you donate about 10 units, and if you have something happen in a emergency trauma ward and they're doing surgery, sometimes those people need up to 50 units of blood.
I've seen it.
Through surgery. Yeah, so it's like there's a big need for blood. There's a big need for donation. So
Right.
everybody
Right.
go out there, look up what the requirements are for you to donate blood. If you meet them, go get some blood. If you don't meet them, work on trying to meet them, because it seems to me that would improve your health and lower your chance of early death and heart attack.
Absolutely. It's a win-win for everyone. And you walk away with cookie and an orange juice.
Yeah, and sometimes they give you T-shirts and sweaters and all kinds of stuff.
Absolutely. It's good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Save a life today.
All right. Well, hope you guys got something out of this. We'll see you next time. Coach Lambie and Dwayne out.
See you guys.